Welcome everybody to the Assembly Committee on Education. Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Assemblywoman Duran. Assemblyman Flores. Present. Assemblywoman Gorlow. Here. Assemblywoman Hanson. Here. Assemblywoman Hardy. Here. Assemblywoman Krasner. Here. Assemblywoman Marzola. Here. Assemblyman MacArthur. Here. Assemblywoman Miller. Here. Assemblywoman Nguyen. Assemblywoman Tolles. Assemblywoman Torres. Here. Chair Bilbray Axelrod.
I am here, and please mark Assemblywoman Nguyen and Tolles that they're here when they arrive. That's what I was trying to say. And I believe, Vice Chair, were you here for? Were you walked? Were you here? Okay. Sorry, didn't know if I missed that. All right. Well, welcome everybody. I think you guys know the drill at this point. If you're joining us online, please keep your microphone on mute. Additionally, if you're in here and you have a device, which we all do, please put them on silent. We're not forcing people to have their face coverings anymore, but if you need to, feel free. We do expect courtesy, and you can find all of this information on the committee's webpage on Nellis. So we are going to hear two bills, and we'll hear them in order. And we'll skip the rest of that stuff and let's just go ahead and get going. So the first bill we have is Senate Bill 194, which revises provisions relating to education by establishing a state seal of civics programs, requiring social studies instruction to include civics and a service learning project, and requires various communities to be included in the content and performance standards for ethnic and diversity studies. Senator Lang, welcome to the committee, and begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just realized I didn't pick up any remarks off the printer, so I'll just kind of wing it a bit if that's okay. So, Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'm Roberta Lang. I represent Senate District 7 in Clark County. My district is by UNLV, and I'm here to present Senate Bill 194. Just a little bit of background information. The Educational Testing Service issued an insightful report in 2012 and called Fault Lines in Our Democracy, Civic Knowledge, Voting Behavior, and Civic Engagement in the United States. The report warns that many U.S. students lack an acceptable level of knowledge about civics. In National Assessment Survey, only about 1/4 of U.S. students showed proficiency in civics. Specifically, only 27% of fourth graders could identify the purpose of the United States Constitution, and only 22% of eighth graders could recognize a role performed by the U.S. Supreme Court. In a national survey released by Woodrow Wilson National Fellowship Foundation in 2018, they found 36% of Americans, that's only 1 in 3 Americans, can actually pass a multiple choice test consisting of questions from the U.S. citizenship test, which has a passing score of 60%. In 2016, the Pew Research Center reported that U.S. voter participation came in 31st among 35 developed countries. These dismal statistics show that not only is there a serious civics education problem in the United States, but the numbers also renew our drive to address this issue now. And why does this matter? Why does it matter that many students lack this knowledge of their country and their government? According to the ETS report, civic knowledge promotes support for democratic values. The more knowledge we have about how our government works, the more likely we are to support core values of a democratic self-government. Civic knowledge promotes political participation. The more knowledge people have, the more likely they are to participate in civic and political affairs. And the more knowledge we have of civic affairs, the less likely we are to have a generalized mistrust and fear of public life. We are still learning about the far-reaching impacts of COVID-19 pandemic has had worldwide, and it appears the pandemic has only amplified the polarization in politics. Just after the 2020 election, the Pew Research Center reported that more than 3 in 4 Americans said the country was now more divided than before the outbreak. While many can argue the different reasons why politics has become so polarizing, I think everyone can agree that the civically educated populace is critical in addressing some of these issues at their source. People who are more civically educated and engaged have improved critical thinking skills and can better filter through the information that is out there. Now that we know what I believe the problem is, I would like to summarize what Senate Bill 194 does. In sections 2 and 3 of Senate Bill 194 establishes the State Seal of Civics program to be awarded to high school graduates with a high level of proficiency in civics and outline the requirements needed to earn the State Seal of Civics. But before I start, I just want to ad-lib a little bit and say that I've talked to the national testing, and the civics exam in Nevada is the #1 test that kids take when their AP test when they're graduating out of high school. So it's popular. Our kids do really well on it. This is just an opportunity to strengthen that. In Section 5, it requires the state superintendent to adopt regulations that allow the superintendent to designate a school as a school of civic excellence, designate a pupil as a student civic leader, or designate a school employee as an educator civic leader. Section 6 is deleted. Section 8 requires the results from the civics exam currently administered to high school students to be reported to the Department of Education. Sections 9 and 10 of Senate Bill 194 add civics to the list of subjects included within social studies, one of the core academic subjects outlined in the Nevada Revised Statutes, and requires the corresponding establishment of a standards, content, and performance. It also speaks about the service project that students will need to complete by 2027. Finally, Section 11 includes additional communities in the list of communities whose culture, history, and contributions must be examined within the standards of content and performance for ethnic and diversity studies. In conclusion, I'd like to give you remarks from United States Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, who once said, "Securing our democracy requires teaching the next generation to understand and respect our system of government." This bill is an important step in helping to ensure more civically educated and engaged children that can graduate from our schools. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to present this bill. I'm happy to answer any questions from you or the members of the committee.
Thank you very much, and I'm sure we have some questions, but I'll go ahead and start. The date that is referred to on page 6, it's actually on page 5, commencing with the graduating class of 2027. So is it your intent that that would be the first time we see this seal is 2027?
Yes, working with the Department of Education, who has worked with the school districts, that seems to be the best date. So the first date would be 2027.
Okay. And to follow up on that, so this is high school criteria though, correct?
This is high school criteria, and honestly, in Washoe School District, my grandkids go to Washoe School District. They're already doing the projects in their schools, as is certain schools in Clark County. It's not required, so it has been optional, but my kids just told me last week that it's their favorite thing that they get to do when they're in high school. So components of this is already happening. This statute would just put it into law, so it happens for all children in Nevada.
I just was curious why it wasn't, incoming freshmen right now would be graduating in the class of 2025. So that's why I was just curious about that date and putting it at 7th graders. But you're saying that it has to be implemented by then.
Yes.
So if people want to implement it sooner, that by all means they're
Sure,
able
that
to
would
do
be
that.
awesome.
Oh, great. A couple more questions for me. How did we come up with the 85%? I mean, that's kind of a low B, and I'm just curious where we got that number.
So that came from the Department of Education. So originally it was a 2.5, what was recommended, and the Department of Education raised it to a 3.85, or 3.25, I'm sorry.
Right, and then, but the 85% required on the civics exam. I was just curious on that number, where that came from.
I'm not really certain, ma'am. I think, I'm not sure if the school districts do require 85%.
We have NDE on Zoom.
Yeah, that would be great.
Ms. McGill, I believe you are available. Maybe. Yeah, I saw her on there too. Well, while she figured that out, I will go.
Oh, there
Oh,
she
there
is.
she is. Okay. Did you hear the question, Ms. Miguel?
Yes, I did. And just a second, we're just getting our staff together to answer.
Okay, I'll go to my final question and then we'll come back to you. My last thing is that you mentioned in your comments that the AP test is the most popular. I know I took it as well. And I was just wondering why that wasn't a requirement, because I'm looking at the state seal I have all of them sort of lined up. We have the state seals in biliteracy, STEM, financial literacy, and STEAM. And most of them do have requirements for an AP exam. And I was just wondering why that did that cross your mind? And that might be a question for ND as well.
That did cross my mind, and originally in the bill was the AP exam was required. In working with the Department of Education and Sarah Nick, they pared down the bill, and that was one thing that was deleted.
And if you wanted to pipe in on those other items, I'd appreciate it.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Janie Maloney for NDE. Thank you, Chair and the committee. In response to the question relating to the 85% on the civics exam, current statute, we do not require a passing score for that exam. The United States Homeland Security Office, for citizenship, they require 60%. So for in the state of Nevada, the districts themselves determine what that passing score is. In regards to the civics seal, it was picked through with discussion with stakeholders that 85% was above the 60%, and that would show adequate proficiency in regards to civic instruction.
Okay, and would you address the AP issue as well?
Sure. Again, Janie Maloney with Department of Education. In regards to the testing that is required and can be accepted, multiple and different tests can be accepted for proficiency use for this seal. The AP test can be one. It just it wasn't included as the only way in this bill that a student can earn proficiency. So it was broadening different avenues for students to achieve proficiency, as well as providing choice. And I will toss it to Miss Sarah Nick if she has additional information.
Ms. Nick, did you want to say hello?
Sorry about that. Hi, good afternoon, Chair. This is Sarah Nick for the record on behalf of the Nevada Department of Education, and we do not have anything to add in addition to Ms. Maloney's comments. Thank you, Senator Lane.
Okay, committee, do you have other questions? I have to say, I wish the AP aspect was still in there, even just taking the test, because that really shows proficiency, but it's not in there, but just wanted to get that on the record. Assemblywoman Torres.
Thank you, and thank you, Senator, for the presentation. I have a couple different questions. So on section 3, page 3 of the bill, subsection, where is it? 3, that's B3, where it said a satisfactory score in citizenship. What would a satisfactory score in citizenship be, and who would determine that? Because the way we grade citizenship, I think, is consistent throughout the state and would be O, S, U, N. And it's not abundantly clear there, so I'm just wondering what would be that definition of satisfactory score on citizenship?
Senator Lang for the record. I think a satisfactory grade would be a passing grade.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I think we could use a little bit more clarification there, just because there technically is no passing or failing for citizenship. And I think we're talking about, is that the citizenship we're talking about, like the ones that teachers put? And would it be for all of the classes combined? Because I don't know that there's like an average of it right now. So I'm wondering, like, is it just for students that are receiving only O's and S's? I hope that makes sense.
So Senator Lang for the record, and maybe Janie wants to weigh in on this. She's shaking her head, so that's why I'm phoning a friend.
Absolutely, Janie Maloney, again for the record, with the Nevada Department of Education. As far as developing what a passing score would be for citizenship, it would be something where at the department we can pull together stakeholders and develop a rubric to actually outline for schools, district schools, what that would look like as far as those passing scores for citizenship. When we look at schools and current different schools do it different ways as far as how they mark what that citizenship score is. We can then develop a rubric that can outline what would then be sufficient in that O or S as far as being satisfactory in citizenship. Citizenship is different than the grade, right? So that grade outlines proficiency in understanding and mastering the standards and those outcomes of what is expected at that grade level, whereas citizenship is that broader aspect of teaching individuals how to be an individual and grow up and what roles and responsibility we have as we go throughout school, our educational journey, and then enter our community to be productive members of the community.
Thank you. And I actually, as you said that, I see that in section 3, sub 2, that would be a component of the rubric. The next question I have, if I may, Chair, is just regarding the service learning project that is brought up in section 9. I don't see anything that's saying who's going to be required to create the requirements for the service learning project, and I do have concerns as an educator working in a high school, just like how timely that type of project is. I know having given service learning projects in my classroom before that, some student, like that can be a timely part of a curriculum, but then it's also timely for the student. And so just requiring it for graduation just provides one more barrier to graduation for some kids that would otherwise graduate. And so I think that's my concern. And I don't know that the legislation defines service learning project, or I haven't seen it, and what that might look like, or even what some of those basic expectations are. And I understand Washoe County is already doing this, and maybe other schools and programs I know throughout the state are doing it, but I'm just hoping to get some more clarity on what that is, what the expectation is, how much work that would be for a student. Because when I did a service, when I did a service learning project in high school, and when I give it to my students, it's a very timely project.
Senator Lang for the record. I'm going to respond then, Janie, if you could follow up. So I can tell you that the service projects, when I was doing campaign work, we would have a lot of students in Clark County come to our campaign. They come with a paper. They had to do X number of hours, and that was their service project. I think a service project can be whatever you want to make it. The student can propose to the teacher. And it's anything that a service project can be done anytime during their high school years. So I don't really see it as a barrier because they have lots of time to do it. It's a barrier for the person that waits till the end, And so, Janie, if you could follow up on that.
Absolutely. Janie Maloney, again for the record, from the Nevada Department of Education. In regards to the service learning project itself, at the department, we would be creating a rubric and an outline of guidelines and a framework that schools could use to help initiate and what would be mandatory and high expectations for that service learning project. What we don't want to have happen is where we dictate to schools and to students what they must do. We do want to provide as much autonomy and choice to our teachers and students so that they get the best use of action. So understanding what being civically engaged is really doing something. So this is providing that practice. This isn't supposed to be the gotcha moment where we don't want kids to graduate. That is not the purpose behind it, but it is about really allowing our students the opportunity for practice and application of the skills that they are learning throughout their high school career. The service learning component can be done throughout different classes. It's not mandated particularly in a class or in a year. It really can be, given some autonomy to students. So if they, are doing something and that would suffice that requirement, then we would want that to be something that our students can look forward to and understand that when they're doing positive work around their community, the benefit for not only themselves, but their community, and how the responses can then exponentially increase around them.
And are you? Okay. Other questions from the committee? Okay. Seeing none, you can step back and we will start testimony. Do we have anyone in the room in support? Please begin when you're ready and don't forget to state your name.
Good afternoon, members of the committee and chair. For the record, my name is Maria Teresa Lieberman Barraga, and I'm the Deputy Director of Battleborn Progress. We are in strong support of SB 194 and profusely thank Senator Roberta Lang for bringing this important bill forward. Studies have shown that adolescent civic engagement leads to a greater socioeconomic status in adulthood, and I'm proof of that. K through 12 schools are uniquely positioned in a way that they reach all young people with diverse backgrounds. By providing civic education to students, it better prepares them to participate in our democracy, and that is what we should all want, more participation. As someone who went through the Clark County School District, I was lucky to have absolutely incredible teachers who really encouraged me and all of my classmates to be curious about our community, our country, our state, our history, and the civics surrounding all of that. This education was incredibly helpful for a young English as a second language immigrant student like me. And now I do the work that I do. Our goal should always be to empower young people to learn about the political process and get involved, because that will just build up for a better future for our students. Please pass SB 194. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Mr. Daly, go ahead.
Madam Chair, Chris Daly, Nevada State Education Association. NSCA also supports SB 194, creating a state seal and civics program, and to be more inclusive in the study of culture, history, and contributions of diverse American communities. We also would like to thank Senator Lang for its introduction. A high-quality public education system is foundational to build and maintain an engaged democratic society. Renewed focus on civic engagement is a critical component in this work, and the creation of a state seal and civics program provides student recognition while promoting the importance of civics. NSCA also wants to indicate our support for updating the list of communities included in ethnic and diversity studies, communities who've contributed so much to Nevada and across the country, and to name the communities that are being added: Pacific Islander Americans, Chicano Americans, Latino Americans, Middle Eastern Americans, women, persons with disabilities, immigrants or refugees, and persons who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or questioning. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair Bill Bray Axelrod and members of the Education Committee. My name is Leonardo Benavides, speaking on behalf of the Clark County School District, and just for today, the Washoe County School District. We are testifying today in support of SB 194, as now more than ever, it is important for students to be civically engaged and be an active part of their community. Providing a state seal will help incentivize students to take the social studies courses they need while also participate in service learning projects. These projects will help students understand the needs of their community and give back in some form that will help instill a sense of belonging. I want to thank Senator Lang today for sponsoring this important bill. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your testimony. Anyone else in the room? I don't see people coming up. Do we have anyone on the Zoom wishing to testify in support? We do not. Okay. Phone lines, BPS. Do we have anyone on the phone lines that wanted to testify in support?
To testify in support on Senate Bill 194, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 135, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
This is Carrie Durmick. It's Kerrydurmick. Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. I'm the State Director of All Voting is Local Nevada. We are in strong support of SB 194. SB 194 would provide Nevada students with a well-rounded civics education, which would promote greater electoral participation amongst young voters and would help to garner a more proactive culture of community engagement. Voting, volunteering, and activism at a young age has been linked to more years of schooling, higher personal income, and fewer depressive symptoms in adulthood. Many young voters are uneducated about the voting process, how government works, and the responsibilities of elected officials. It's important that we provide students an opportunity to learn about voting before they are eligible to vote. Thank you for your time, and please pass SB 194.
Thank you for your testimony. BPS, do we have any other callers in support?
Caller with the last 3 digits of 832, please press *6 to unmute. You will have 2 minutes. Please state and spell your name for the record, and you may begin.
Hi, my name is Chris, last name Davin, D-A-V-I-N. I'm the Executive Director at Henderson Equality Center and also the Executive Director of Equality Nevada. We here are in support of SB 194 and Roberta Lang and making sure that we become the 6th state in the United States that incorporates adding people in history and civics from the LGBT community. Only 15% were taught positive representations of LGBTQ people in history. And with history evolving, we cannot let our students and those in the LGBT community suffer any longer by not learning from their ancestors and people that have made history. We cannot be silent. We need to let people know who has impacted our history and made what we have today possible. So we are in support of SB 194. We hope that you pass this bill. Thank you. You have the floor.
BPS, next caller.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 069, please state and spell your name for the record, and you may begin.
Hello, this is Andre Wade, Andrewade. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Bilberry Axelrod and committee members. I'm State Director for Silver State Equality, a statewide LGBTQ civil rights organization that strives to create a world that is healthy, just, and fully equal for all LGBTQ plus Nevadans. And we are a partner of Let Nevadans Vote. Silver State Equality is in full support of SB 194 because we believe that every Nevada student should be provided with a well-rounded education that includes civic engagement and diversity studies. It is important for us to ensure that our next generation has the proper resources to adequately participate in our democracy, as well as to become educated on the many diverse communities we as Nevadans interact with on a daily basis. This will include Black people, members of the LGBTQ plus community, women, persons with disabilities, as well as a wide array of different cultures and nationalities. SB 194 would work to make civic and diverse education a staple in our Nevada schools. I urge this committee to please pass this great civic education bill, and thank you to the work of Senator Lang for bringing this bill forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Next caller in support.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 013, please state and spell your name for the record, and you may begin.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Lorenzita Santos, Lorenzita, Lorenzita, Santos, Santos. I'm the outreach coordinator for One APIA Nevada, testifying in support of SB 194. In 2020, we saw unprecedented voter turnout for the Asian American Pacific Islander community in Nevada and nationwide. From 2010 to 2016, the number of eligible API voters in Nevada grew 35% compared to the 13% statewide. During the 2020 election, we sent in-language mailers to households who spoke a second language with information on how to vote by mail or in person. A well-rounded civics education would promote greater electoral participation and proactive engagement, particularly with young voters. By enacting a state seal of civics, we are encouraging high school students to engage with the electoral and legislative process. By encouraging youth civic participation, we can create a generation of lifetime voters. We urge you to support SB 194. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Any other callers in support?
Caller with the last 3 digits of 133, please press *6 to unmute. You all have 2 minutes. Please state and spell your name for the record, and you may begin.
Hello, good evening. For the record, my name is Alexa Aispuro, Alexaaispuro, and I'm a youth organizer with Chiefs in Nevada, a program of the Legal Conservation Voters, and a proud partner of the Let Nevadans Vote. CHISPA works to build the power of Latinx families in Nevada to have a say in the environmental decisions that affect us. I am here in support of SB 194. As we know, this bill would give public high schools and charter schools the option to opt into a program that would require civics education in their institutions. As someone who works closely with high school students, I have had one-on-one conversations with them where they say that they don't believe in voting, they do not know the importance of voting, and some believe that the only elections that matter, if they only matter for some, are the presidential ones. During the times that I would register students to vote, there were many students in the classroom that didn't fill out the registration form because of the lack of general information they had on the process. Many students did not know the process of voting, how to vote, where to vote, and lastly, why even vote. There is a huge disconnect with our students in the importance of participating in our democracy, and it is truly up to us to ensure that we are giving the resources needed to our future generations to have a voice in our democracy and to stand up for what they believe in. By passing SB 194, we are ensuring our future generations have access to this information that is vital to keep our democratic process equitable and to ensure Black, Indigenous, and people of color have a seat at the table, as well as are represented by people who look like them. Thank you for your time. Have a good day.
Thank you for your testimony. Any other callers in support?
For those who have just joined, if you wish to testify in support of SB 194, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 201, please state and spell your name for the record. You may begin.
Good afternoon, committee. My name is Emily Prasad Zamora. That's EMILYPERSAUD-ZAMORA. And I'm the Executive Director of Silver State Voices, testifying on behalf of the Let Nevadans Vote Coalition. We stand in strong support of 194 today because 20 years from now, the legislators sitting in your seats will be the students who benefit from this program. Part of our work at Silver State Voices is working with our partners to register Nevadans to vote, educating them on our political process, getting out the vote, and protecting the ability of Nevadans to vote through our election protection program. Many of our partners work very closely with Nevada immigrant communities and assist a large number of folks with their naturalization process, including the USCIS assessment that's required for all new U.S. citizens. SB 194 would administer the same assessment to participating high school students. If naturalized citizens are required to pass this test as a threshold for their naturalization, it would seem appropriate for our up-and-coming and youngest electorate to become exposed to the same process before being able to cast their ballots. Our partners, and we have seen that the average Nevadan is not very well informed on our political process. This is especially true for first-time voters who are coming out of high school. We often see that young voters are uneducated about the voting process, how government works, and the responsibilities of elected officials like state senators or county commissioners. We often hear more experienced and well-informed voters complain that young people don't vote and don't want to talk about the issues. I ask this body of legislators, what are our responsibilities to the education of the next generation of Nevadans? This is our opportunity to ensure that our children have the tools to be educated and in return become civically engaged. It's important to acknowledge our privilege of experiencing firsthand how democracy works. Our deepest gratitude to Senator Lang for bringing this legislation forward and for paving the way to educating Nevada's future voters. Thank you so much, and I hope you all are hanging in there in the next couple of days.
Thank you, and thank you for your concern. We're trying. Okay, I think that is our last call in support. Is that correct, BPS?
That is correct, Chair. There are no further callers in support of SB 194 at this time.
Thank you. With that, we will close the testimony in support and move to testimony in opposition. Is there anyone in the room in opposition? No one in the room, no one on the Zoom. So we will, BPS, are there any callers who are in opposition?
To testify in opposition to Senate Bill 194, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 343, please press star 6 to unmute. You'll have 2 minutes. Please state and spell your name for the record, and you may begin.
Yes, my name is Doug Goodman, Douggoodman. I am founder and executive director of Nevadans for Election Reform. I serve as vice chair of the Nevada Secretary of State's Advisory Committee on Participatory Democracy, and I'm also a member of the board of Alpine Academy, a charter school, college prep charter school in Sparks. I've submitted written testimony. However, I am testifying on my own behalf as an individual. Civics education is the cornerstone of our future. It is more critical than STEM, for if one does not know how our government works, how the various levels of government interact, and how their decisions and actions impact every aspect of our daily lives, it does not matter what profession or career path one pursues. Sadly, the importance of civics or social studies has for too long taken a back seat. Any real effort to reverse this trend is more than welcome and should be supported. SB 194, while well-intentioned, does not do this. An academic seal on diploma is meant to signify performance above and beyond. Currently, all Nevada high school students are required to complete 3 units of social studies. SB 194 does not change this. The grade point average requirement of 3.25 appears to reflect the overall required GPA. To enhance civics, perhaps this GPA should be in the civics-related courses. The service requirement will be effective for all students in 2027, not something special, perhaps encouraging participation in We the People or extended projects to qualify for a seal that designates above and beyond performance should be considered. Also, the civics test currently required in NRS 389009 can be taken several times. While the requirement for 85% passage rate in SB 194 is admirable, perhaps also specifying this needs to be on one attempt of the test. I've also listed some other recommendations in my written testimony. SB 194 is well-intentioned. It needs to be strengthened to really have the value of an academic seal and encourage students to go above and beyond normal graduation requirements. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony, and we do have your letter on Nellis as well, so thank you. BPS, are there any other callers in opposition?
Chair, the line is open and working, but there are no further callers in opposition to SB 194 at this time.
Thank you very much. With that, we will close the testimony in opposition and open testimony in neutral. Anyone in the room here to testify in neutral? Not seeing anyone, and I don't believe we have anyone on the Zoom. BPS, do we have anyone on the phone line to testify in neutral?
To testify in the neutral position on Senate Bill 194, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, at this time, the line is open and working. However, there are no callers to testify in the neutral position on Senate Bill 194.
Thank you. With that, we will close the testimony in neutral. Senator Lang, did you want to make some brief closing remarks?
Thank you, Chair. Just a brief remarks because I know we're all busy. It's the end days. I just want to thank you for having me here today. And I'm not going to tell you that this bill is perfect. I think it goes a long way to saying how important that we think civics is for our kids and the future generations. We have opportunities in upcoming legislative sessions to make changes to the bill and to strengthen it. I urge you to support this bill and that we can begin teaching our kids civics in school. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And with that, I will close the hearing on SB 194, and I will open the hearing on SB 210, which revises provisions relating to the education of a child with emotional disturbance. Welcome back to the committee, Senator Dondero Loop. Begin when you're ready.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and it's a pleasure to be back, and we are in our last few days, but we'll make it. Thank you very much. For the record, I'm Marilyn Dondero Loop, representing Senate District 8 in Clark County, and I'm pleased to present Senate Bill 210 for your consideration. The bill supports the continued education of children who experience emotional disturbances. Our society struggles with the stigma of mental illness, even though mental illness is becoming more widely recognized. This stigma can have lasting impacts on a person's lives. One key challenge facing our educational system is how best to support the individual learning needs of every student, no matter the circumstances. Every child has a right to an education. We know marginalized populations are much less likely than others to experience a successful transition to adulthood. Students experiencing emotional disturbances, for example, have been marginalized because of the unique circumstances that they face, which require a differentiated approach to their learning. It is critical that we meet the needs of these groups to not only improve their lives, but also help support them in becoming fully contributing members of society. As part of our continued efforts in dealing with mental health in our schools, it is important to examine how we address the educational needs of those children with the most severe cases, including those who are admitted to specialized facilities. Existing law provides that children admitted to a psychiatric hospital or other related facility have the right to an education. This measure further supports the rights of those children to an education, specifically our foster youth. Senate Bill 210 requires a psychiatric hospital or residential mental health treatment facility to which a child with an emotional disturbance is admitted to develop a plan for continuing the child's education in consultation with the school in which the child was most recently enrolled, the school district, the agency providing child welfare services, and any person responsible for the child's education. The school and school district must also participate in the development of the plan and comply with it, including by providing any existing individualized education programs to the facility. A plan must be considered when determining whether it is what is in the best interest of the child to remain within his or her school of origin. Additionally, Senate Bill 210 requires the school district in which the child was enrolled to monitor the child's progress in a facility and participate in the discharge planning for transitioning the child into an educational setting. Prior to the child being admitted to certain facilities, a meeting must be convened to consider the appropriateness of a residential placement. With that, Madam Chair, I'd like to ask Jillian Black, who is here with me today, to walk you through the bill.
Thank you, Senator. Good afternoon, Chair and Committee. For the record, my name is Jillian Block, representing the Nevada Coalition of Legal Service Providers. The goal of SB 210 is to ensure that when children who are in the child welfare system are placed in psychiatric hospitals, they are still receiving the education they are entitled to by law. We have worked with the Nevada Department of Education, the school districts, and the child welfare agencies to get to a good place with what you have before you. The starting point for this bill is NRS 432B.6082, which says that a child who is in the custody of an agency which provides child welfare services and who is admitted to a facility has the right to receive an education as required by law. Our goal is to strengthen this existing law. We want to clarify what the treatment centers are required to do to provide that education and to ensure that there is communication and coordination between the treatment centers and school districts. I will now just quickly walk through the bill. Section 1 distinguishes between an acute psychiatric treatment center and a residential treatment center. Section 1, subsection 1 deals with acute psychiatric treatment centers. children who are admitted to acute psychiatric treatment centers are typically staying for a short amount of time. So for these children, when they are admitted to the acute psychiatric treatment center, the facility would be required to develop a plan to educate the child, to promote continuity while the child is hospitalized, and to make recommendations to the school, if appropriate, upon discharge. This plan must be provided to the school district, and the child's caseworker. Section 1, subsection 2 lays out what is required to be in the plan that the facility will develop, which includes the number of hours for instruction, how instructional materials will be transferred from the facility to the school, how the child's progress will be monitored, and how the child will be transitioned back into school upon discharge. And if the child has an IEP, there must be some provisions in the plan for the facility to continue to comply with the IEP. Section 1, subsection 1, and subsection 2 apply to any child in the custody of a child welfare agency that's admitted to an acute psychiatric treatment center, regardless of whether they have an IEP. Section 1, subsection 3 deals with longer-term stays at residential treatment centers, and again applies only to children who are in the custody of a child welfare agency. This section says that for a child with a disability, before that child is admitted to a residential treatment center, the school district would be required to convene an IEP meeting to consider the appropriateness of the residential placement. For students without an IEP, the school district will convene a meeting of representatives of the school, the child welfare agency, and any persons responsible for the child's education to consider the appropriateness of residential placement. The school district would then collaborate with the residential treatment center to monitor the student's progress and the return to school. So this section provides for two different processes depending on whether a student is identified as having special education needs or not. Section 1, subsection 3, A through C, lays out the school district's responsibility to convene either the IEP meeting or the general meeting to consider the appropriateness of residential placement, to monitor the child's progress while the child is in the facility, and to participate in discharge planning to ensure a smooth transition back to school. And specifically with regards to students with an IEP, this part of the bill, section 1, sub 3, will codify a Ninth Circuit decision, MSV LAUSD, which says that the school district has an obligation to consider whether a student is entitled to residential placement pursuant to IDEA. Section 1, sub D, allows the Nevada Department of Education to develop regulations related to discharge and reentry. Sections 2, 3, and 4 add in references to Section 1 of this Act. Section 5 and 6 add references to the provisions of this Act to NRS Chapter 392 and 394, dealing with public and private schools. And lastly, the bill adds a new section to NRS 433B.300 to reference Section 1 of the bill to include a plan for continued education for the child to the requirements for treatment provided. And Amy Honadal with the Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada is also on the Zoom and available for questions. And with that, we're happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Members, do we have questions on the bill? Okay, I'm going to, okay, yeah, two of you do. So I will start with you, Assemblywoman Krasner, and then we'll go to you, Assemblywoman Gorlow.
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering, what are we doing now for children who are in these acute psychiatric centers or in longer-term residential treatment centers for mental illness?
Thank you for the question. Well, and I'll let Ms. Honadal speak to this in depth, but my understanding is that this framework is in place, but the goal of this bill is to just put some meat on the bones so that this process is more clear.
That's all. Thank you very much for bringing the bill, Senator.
Assemblywoman Gorlow, go ahead.
Thank you. Actually, my colleague kind of took my question. I also wanted to know, because I work for a facility that's going to be opening a long-term care pediatric facility, and this is part of our plan moving forward as we get ready to open. But I also had a quick question on how this would work with children that are being sent out of state. I've been told that many children, especially in the behavioral health arena and the mental health, that they're being sent to different states for treatment. So how would this work with some of those?
Go ahead.
This is okay. Well, I think
if you don't mind, I think Ms. Block had deferred the first question to me, and I can actually help out with the second question as well. For the record, this is Amy Honodel. My name is spelled AMYHONODEL. I'm a staff attorney at Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada in their Children's Attorneys Project, and I represent foster youth that will be helped out by SB 210 that is before you this afternoon. Currently, and I'm only going to speak for Clark County because that's where I practice, there is structure, as Ms. Block mentioned, but it is not always followed. A lot of this is left up to the staff attorneys representing the youth as well as the caseworkers to, and I'll start with the acute placement first. And there we're talking about a youth who's admitted to a facility on an emergency basis. Sometimes caseworkers are able to get the school to communicate with the hospital, or they actually act as the conduit, but a lot of times they do not, either because the caseworker is too busy, the child is discharged before the information trickles back to the caseworker and the staff attorney. But what happens a lot of times, and what has happened personally to some of my clients, is they have entered, and I can think of one client who entered right before finals, and as a result came out with a bunch of failing grades. Now, the caseworker in that case was able to reach out to the school and have the school reinstate her grades prior to the time of the final exams, but other times students are not as lucky. So the structure is there. This is just to use a term that I've heard my colleague use. This is just really to ensure that there's a warm handoff vis-a-vis the caseworker. And in every case now, pursuant to a law that was changed in the last session, every youth is required to have a court-assigned education decision maker, and that is referenced in the bill. So the education decision maker and the caseworker will be helping to coordinate the hospital and the school communicating. Now, with longer care, residential treatment, a lot of our youth, our foster youth, are sent out of state, and this is in part because we don't have that many facilities, and we're happy to hear about new ones being open, but also based just upon bed availability. And in that case, what is currently happening, at least what happened to one of my clients who recently returned from out of state, is he was unenrolled at his school and then went to Texas. In that case, we had an education decision maker and an advocacy team that helped form the conduit. But now what will happen is that the school will continue to communicate with the hospital and help with the transition back, so these students are not losing any time in the classroom. And I believe now that COVID has taught us that we don't need to do everything in person, we'll be able to facilitate communications between schools that are in different states. I think most of our schools here in Clark County, if not all, have someone who is designated in the school as a foster youth liaison, and those people are working with the counselors to make sure that these credits, at least for the older students, will transfer back and forth. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions, members? Okay, not seeing any. We will have you step back. And is there anyone, we'll open up testimony in support. Is there anyone in the room who'd like to testify in support? Please begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Good afternoon. For the record, my name's Mary Brzezinski, representing Nevada Association of School Superintendents, and we are in strong support of this bill. It's yes, it does happen in most instances, but this will make sure that our children who are the most vulnerable are treated properly, and their education plan continues even after a hospitalization. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Mr. Keating?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Bilbray Axelrod, members of the Assembly Committee on Education. My name is Brad Keating with the Clark County School District, testifying in support of SB 210. This bill ensures that all students will have a smooth transition into and out of a hospital setting and to receive an educational experience that is seamless, something that is incredibly important to the Clark County School District. There have been discrepancies in past situations with how next steps should be interpreted. This bill helps clarify that so that all parties are following the right protocols as we move forward. It also ensures that the facility maintains compliance for our students' IEPs, which is of utmost importance to us. We appreciate Bailey Bordelin, Jillian Block, and Senator Don Darrell-Loop for working with our district on this bill and urge the committee's support moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in the room? And I don't believe we have anyone on the Zoom. BPS, do we have callers in support?
To testify in support of Senate Bill 210, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 147. Please press star 6 to unmute. Caller with the last 2 digits of 147, please state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Bridget Duffy, Brigid Duffy, Chief of the Juvenile Division for the Clark County District Attorney's Office, appearing today on behalf of Clark County Department of Family Services in support of SB 210. I echo the statements of CCSD, Mr. Keating. I would like to just make sure the intent on the record in Section 1 puts the burden on the psychiatric hospital. We worked very closely with Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada to get into support and make sure that the statutory sections were added to NRS 392, which is the school district's responsibility, and NRS 433B, which is our psychiatric mental health hospital's responsibility, so that they did have a ultimate legal responsibility to work together. Section 1 maintains the psychiatric hospital's responsibility in NRS 432B, but we do not have jurisdiction over psychiatric hospitals under NRS 432B. So I just want to make sure that it's very clear that the jurisdiction over the hospitals in order to have them create this plan that they are now legally responsible for would lie in NRS 433B, and the Child Welfare Agency is just responsible to be there in consultation for those plans to be created. Thank you very much.
BPS, next caller.
Chair, the line is open and working. However, we have no additional callers at this time.
Thank you. And with that, we will close testimony in support and open testimony in opposition. Is there anyone in the room? And no one on the Zoom. BPS, are there any callers in opposition?
Chair, the line is open and working. However, we have no callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you very much. And I will close testimony in opposition and open testimony in neutral. Is there anyone in the room wishing to offer neutral? I don't see anyone, and we don't have anyone on the Zoom. BPS, is there anyone on the phone that would like to testify in neutral?
Chair, the line is open and working, but we have no callers to test. Oh, let me see. If you wish to testify in the neutral position on SB 210, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Once again, if you wish to testify in neutral on SB 210, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 411. Please press star 6 to unmute. There you go. Please state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Lindsay Anderson, and I'm hoping to log my support of this legislation. And I'm sorry I was late. Can I proceed with my testimony?
No, you may not. No, I'm just kidding. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lindsay Anderson, LINDSAYANDERSON, on behalf of the Washoe County School District. I appreciate Mr. Keating indicating our support, trying to be in 2 places at once here, but I really appreciate Senator Dondero Loop working with us and Bailey Bordelin to get this bill to a place where we're going to get a warm handoff from these facilities for our students, and so we are in full support of this legislation. Thank you for accommodating me.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson, and we will mark you down as in support. BPS, we'll go back to neutral. Are there any callers in the neutral position?
Chair, the line is open and working. However, we have no further callers at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. Did you want to make any closing remarks, Senator?
Thank you very much, committee, and thank you for having me here today for these most vulnerable children. Marilyn Dondero Loop for the record. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And with that, we will close the hearing on SB 210, I think we do have permission from Speaker to suspend the rules, and I think we're going to go ahead and work session this bill. So with that, we'll go ahead and open the work session on SB 210. Ms. Robusto? I don't think we need to have remarks since we just heard it, right? We'll just jump right in. Before I take a motion, are there any questions on the bill that we literally just heard? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to do pass from Assemblywoman Hanson. I have the motion. From Assemblywoman Krasner, I have the second. And are there any comments on the motion before we vote? Okay. All in favor of this motion? So please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No? Okay. The motion passes unanimously. And although I'm tempted to give it to someone, I'm going to give this to Assemblywoman Krasner. Floor statement. All right. And with that, I will close the work session on the agenda, and we'll move to our last thing, which is public comment. Anybody in the room here for public comment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, Brad Keating for the record. It may be my last opportunity to give a good news minute, so I will not let the opportunity go by. So, wanted to mention, obviously we're getting ready to start graduations in Clark County School District and all across the state, so we are extremely excited about that. Wanted to mention one student, Trayless Dyson IV. He is known all across the Las Vegas Valley now as the high school student with a 5.037 GPA who got accepted into 59 colleges and earned over $2.5 million in scholarship offers. Dyson, who's 17 years old from Shadow Ridge High School, will attend the University of Southern California in the fall. We are so incredibly proud of him and all the students graduating in the coming weeks, and we want to thank each of you for supporting our students to get through the finish line. Thank you.
Thank you. I saw that article in the paper last week, and I guess he's going to be studying film, so I can't wait to see what he produces. Is there anyone else in the room for public comment? And anyone on the phone line, BPS?
If you wish to give public comment at this time, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
On the queue.
Chair, the line is open and working. However, we have no callers at this time.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm just going to make one little comment. Tonight is the drive-through 8th grade promotion for my daughter, Molly Ann Bilbray Axelrod, and I'm so sad that I won't be there, but I'm so proud of you, and congratulations to all those folks who are graduating right now and getting promoted, so thank you. So I will close public comment. We probably will have another meeting. I don't know, so we'll just I'll let you just watch your emails. Any other comments from people in the committee? You may make a comment, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to actually make this comment and direct it toward Dr. Keating, and just how much, even though we haven't had a lot of good news minutes this session, that I appreciate it, because often, especially in this committee, we hear, just so many complaints or problems, or it's all about everything that we think is wrong with our education system here in Nevada, whether it's reality or perception. And I think that people don't recognize just how hard our students are working, just how hard our educators are working, just the absolute amazing things that are happening here in Nevada. The amount of students that get full rides to Ivy League colleges, teachers, getting national recognized as, in the nation, and just all the amazing things that happen, and the hard work and the heart that's put into education, despite all of the things that we hear here in these hearings. And so I thank you, because I appreciate it, because we need to just remind people that sometimes narrative gets louder than reality. And I know if we ask the average parent, about how hard is your student working in school and how hard are your teachers working for your kids, that they would have, a much different perception. So thank you for reminding us of just all the great things and the great hard work and the amazing kids that we do have here in Nevada that are succeeding. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I second that. Okay, so as I said, we will have another bill if we get something referred and possible work session. So that is it. This concludes our meeting for today. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.